What's going on, guys? This is Joe, coming back to you again for episode 6.5 of Driving to the Draft. Why episode 6.5? Well, I've already recorded episode 7. And in recording episode 7, I realized, and one of the pitfalls of having a non-scripted show like this is I didn't really properly set it up. So I'm here today to set up episode 7. Now, if you have never played Magic before, thank you for clicking on the video despite the title. Don't click off yet, at least hear me out. So, obviously, then based on the title and based on what I just said, I'm going to be talking about drafting today and what drafting is, because this series is called Driving to the Draft. So, what's a draft? Well, obviously, Magic the Gathering, for those of you that don't know at all, Magic the Gathering is a card game. If you guys are not aware of that, it's been around since 1993. And I've already talked about my own history with it, so I won't get into that. Obviously, I don't have to do a channel intro because I already did that in episode 6 and in episode 7. So you lucky people get 2 Driving to the Draft videos this week. So drafting is what's called a format in Magic. And what a format is Magic cards are playing cards. They're trading cards, but they're also playing cards. And you can play with them in different ways. So you can play in what's called a constructed format, which means you buy a bunch of cards or trade for a bunch of specific cards, buying in, singles and individual cards. And then you can you can make a deck out of that. And the deck that you make has to fit some different parameters. I'm not really a big constructed player, and that's not what we're here to talk about today, but that's kind of the more traditional trading card playing that I think everybody knows is, buy a bunch of cards, make a deck, and play against other people's decks. Well, what drafting is a form of a limited format. So what a limited format is you have a set number of cards, and you have a specific card pool to pull your cards from. And so what that means is that you don't need to walk in the door having ever owned or touched a single Magic card in your life. And that's kind of beneficial to you because it's a way that I'll mention in the next video, but it's a way to kind of get started playing the game, get started practicing playing the game, and after you've learned how to play. Now, if you're watching this video and you don't know anything about Magic, you've never played Magic, but this sounds like something interesting to you, let me know. Comments down below, Facebook and Twitter, as I always say, are in the description if you want to go on there as well. Let me know, because my recommendation, if you want to learn how to play Magic, and maybe I can help you guys out with it, which is why I'm asking, is go on Steam. If you have Steam on your computer, go on Steam and download Magic Duels, the game. Doesn't cost you a penny. I didn't pay for it. It's a free download. You can pay in the game for like packs and stuff, but for what I'm recommending for you, you don't need that at all. Play the story mode. There are modules in the story mode that will teach you how to play. They go through step by step. It's really a nice introduction. Amy kind of talked about it in her video as well. That's how she learned how to play Magic, was by playing Magic Duels. And it's a really great teaching tool. I think it works really well. I think the modules that they used are really good. And yes, as me, somebody who's been playing for years, I still played through the modules. It was definitely a little condescending to me, when they're telling me all these things, but I also understand that it was very, very helpful for someone who's never played before. So that's my recommendation. Once again, not sponsored by anybody to tell you to do it. I actually think that outside of the modules and teaching people how to play, the game is just so. But in terms of teaching you how to play, I think it's perfect. It does exactly what it needs to do. So if you're interested in Magic, definitely do that. If you'd like, let me know. We might, I make no promises, but we might be able to try to have me play through those modules myself, just so that if you really don't feel like playing and you don't feel like downloading, or you don't have Steam, you can still watch me and you might actually learn how to play from that. But regardless, back to drafting. So drafting is a nice way to kind of break into the game. It's a limited format, which means you walk in the door, like I said, with no cards whatsoever, and you can play, because what happens is you pay, and it varies store to store how much it's worth. or how much it is to draft. Plus, it depends on what the prize support is, meaning what you could win if you win. But you get 3 packs of Magic in front of you. And those 3 packs sit in a little stack, or however you want to arrange them. And the judge of the event would explain it to you, or the tournament organizer of the event would explain it to you, because it is a tournament of sorts. And you get those 3 packs. And you pick up the first pack, whichever pack they tell you to open first. If they're all the same, that's entirely, if they're all the same set of cards, it's entirely up to you which one you open first, because that's entirely up to you. If they have different arts on them, or you kind of lift it up, and there's different people who have different opinions on which order they open their packs in. Totally up to you. Have fun with it. It's, superstition. You obviously don't know what's in there, but what you're going to do to draft, though, is you're seated around a table. There's usually about 8 people per table, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on how many people are in the tournament itself. But the typical number is 8. And there's 8 people sitting around a table, and you pick up your first pack and you open it up. Now, each pack of Magic cards from more recent sets, older sets have less, but more recent sets and what you're going to be drafting with have 15 cards in them. One of them is going to be a basic land, usually. And some stores will let you set that basic land aside and you don't have to leave it in the pack. Some stores will make you keep it in and you have to draft, meaning that usually the last card is the land that's left. But I haven't gotten to that yet. So what you do with your pack, you open it up and you have 15 cards in front of you. And now it's your job to pick one of those cards. And that card will be yours. And you put that card face down in a pile in front of you, somewhere that you've already designated to have that be your pile. And you give the other 14 or 13, depending on if you took the land out, cards to the person to your left. And the person to your right hands you 13 or 14 cards. And you pick up those 13 or 14 cards that they have left you, having taken one card out of that pack. And you look at those cards, and you take one of those. And basically, you're not just taking it, you're taking it with strategy, and the next video is more about strategy. This is just an intro to what drafting is, but watch the next video, either when it comes out or right now, depending on when you're watching this, to learn about the strategy of it. But you do that consequentially each time until there are no cards left in the pack. So at one point, the person to your right is going to pass you one card. So you won't have a choice. You just take that one card, put it in your stack, and that's it. Now, you're going to do this with all 3 packs. There is a little hitch here, but I'll get to that in a second. But you're going to do that with all 3 packs, and once you have your stack of your cards, you make a deck out of those. Now, if you don't know how to play Magic, this might not make sense, but you need to play your cards with what are called land cards. Forests, islands, mountains, swamps, and plains. And those are the basic land types. But there's also other non-basic lands that'll be in the packs themselves. But your store, whichever store you go to play, will have all 5 of those lands and a big stack of them available to you, and you put in as many as you feel you need based on your experience of each of those colors of basic lands. And you use those to play your cards. So you can put any number of those in there, but otherwise, every other card that you play with is going to be out of that pool, that draft pool, which is what that stack of cards that you take is called, your draft pool. And you're going to make that into a deck. So clearly, actually not clearly, the deck needs to have a minimum of 40 cards in it. What that means is you can technically have more, but strategy dictates, and I didn't mention this in the next video, so I'll mention it now. Strategy dictates that you keep that number to 40 cards, which means that you will have more probability, it's statistics and probability, you have more of a chance of getting the card that you need if you keep your deck to 40 than if you add more to it. Because obviously you have less of a chance of drawing the card that you need if there's more than 40 cards in there. So, and usually what they tell you, it depends on the set that you're drafting or what you're drafting, but usually you're looking at 17 to 18 basic lands, or lands in general, if you picked up some non-basic lands in the packs themselves. And that would mean 22 or 23 non-land cards in your deck. And those are going to be the cards that you're using to play your opponents with. And then what you do is, everybody else who was sitting at that table drafting with you now has to make a deck. And you're going to play in a tournament against all of those people. And in that tournament, you're going to, like I said, use the cards that you got from those packs. Now, once you've done all that, you build your deck, all that good stuff. But I want to go back for a second. I was talking about going to your store, and that's where you would play. Clearly, drafting events, you can do them on Magic the Gathering Online. That costs money for digital versions of cards, so maybe for practice purposes you could do that, but my opinion is go to the store itself. I'm a collector myself. I like having the cards. When I'm done, when you're done, you get to keep every card that you drafted, except for the basic lands, because those don't belong to you unless you bring your own. Some people do that. But you get to keep every card that you drafted. Those are yours now. And you can add that to your collection, and I mentioned it in the next video, but that's why it's a good way to start your own collection, because you get to just keep those cards. It's about 45 cards. It's not exactly, but it's about 45 cards per draft that you get. Plus, sometimes there are people at your local store that draft stuff that they already have, and they just needed it for the draft that day, and so they don't need those cards anymore. And sometimes they just leave them there. And if the store doesn't want them, because you are in a store, so let the store have the first crack at those cards. But otherwise, talk to people if they're not interested in them. Sometimes people are like, yeah, here, take it. They call it bulk, right? Or chaff, because it's stuff that they have already and they don't need it anymore. And so they'll give, there are people at my store at least that give chaff away. They don't need it. So if you're looking to collect cards, take them, right? They're for you now. So you can pick those up for yourself, make your own collection there. But regardless, so you go to a local game store, and some people will refer to that as locals, or an LGS, a local game store. That's a store that sells the Magic cards. They probably sell other things. I don't know that I've ever been to a store that just sells Magic cards. Usually it's also Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes it's comic books. We've had videos on this channel talking about a store that sells Magic, and they also do tabletop gaming, and they also sell paintball equipment. So it's a nice mix. But what's really important, and I mentioned this in other videos on the channel as well, what's really important is the community that's there, because you get to meet people who want to draft. And sometimes, depends on the store that you're going to go to, but sometimes you're going to meet people who are pro players or semi-pro players or wannabe pro players. And you'll know those people. Maybe you're not as cynical as I am, so maybe you won't, but you'll know those people when you see them. They're the ones who are going to be, talking up different strategies and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff they say is going to go right over your head. Sometimes it even goes over mine. But there are going to be people there who are just awesome people. And I've met many of those guys before. I love hanging out with them. I love talking to them. And the other thing is, if you're new to drafting, let people know that you're new, Don't necessarily walk in the door and be like, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing. But at the same time, walking up to somebody and saying, hey, man, I'm sorry, this is my first time. You think you could help me out? People are almost always willing to do that. I love talking to people about deck building strategies, and you show them the cards that you've taken. Now, obviously, you can't ask for, or you shouldn't, I should say, ask for advice while you're actually drafting. So stay tuned to the next video for information on that. Just because of the fact that the people sitting to your left and sitting to your right, it matters to them what you take out of the pack, because it helps them or hurts them depending on what you take. So depending on who you're talking to, they might not give you the best advice, and it kind of clues other people in at the table as to what you're playing. Plus the fact that you don't want other people at the table knowing what other cards are in that pack, because that helps them dictate it helps them know what other people have as well. That's a little higher level for this introductory video. But regardless, after you've collected all of your cards, asking for help when you're building a deck there's nothing wrong with that at all. And like I said, if you meet nice people and you meet good people, they'll be more than happy to help you with that. If you've watched our other videos and you know what store I go to draft, I'll help you. I'm not that good, I've always said that, but I'm more than happy to try to help and talk people through stuff. So, you know, that's just what a local game store does for you. Hardcore collectors and people who are just in it to try to make money and use it as an investment of some kind will tell you, go online, buy online, you know, your sealed product or whatever. And you can draft online, as I mentioned, but you won't have the physical cards after you're done drafting online. You'll have them in your digital collection, depending on what kind of a draft you do online, but that's a digital collection. You can't pick those up and hold them in your hands, and some people are okay with that. I'm not one of those people. I'm a collector at heart. I love holding the cards. I'm weird, and Amy has told me I'm weird. A lot of people have told me I'm weird, but I love the smell of them. When you open up a pack, the smell of new cards is fantastic. Don't pull away. I know that freaks people out. So I'll stop going off on that tirade. But it's a great way to meet new people and hang out with new people and just go and play and try stuff out. A pre-release is also a really good way of doing that. It's new cards, so everybody who's there is playing with those cards for the first time. Now, those cards have been spoiled online leading up to the release of that set or the pre-release of that set, which means that people who have looked at those cards online will know what they do. But a sealed event is actually a little bit, or a pre-release event is what's known as a sealed format. I talked about draft already, and I'll do this and then we'll cut because this video is probably getting a little long. But a sealed format is different, and that's what a pre-release is a sealed format. You get 6 packs of Magic cards, and you open all of them, and all of them are yours. All of those cards are yours. So you get 6 packs. It's obviously then going to be more expensive than draft because you're getting 6 instead of 3. But you also get to keep every one of those cards, and it's the same idea. You then build a deck out of your sealed pool, which is all 6 of those packs. You can add in basic lands, as I mentioned earlier, and you make a deck, and you play in a tournament against all of the other decks that have made their decks out of sealed pools. And maybe that's a little bit easier, right? Because you don't have to worry about, ooh, is this the right card to pick out of this pack? And what's the guy sitting next to me going to do? What's the guy that's sitting to my other side going to do? But it's a little bit different as well. And that actually is also a really good environment to say, hey, you know, these are the cards that I have. Can you help me out? And again, more than likely, there's going to be somebody there to help you out. You know, if sometimes it happens if you get 8 people and you're one of the 8 people and 7 of them are super competitive, then maybe you don't, and don't give up on Magic just from that experience. I think that, like I said, there are some people who are, I think it's more of the wannabe pros than the pros. Sometimes the pros really want to help, and they're the people, what I mean by pros are, there are literally professional Magic tournaments and stuff where people can go and play in events competitively for big money prizes. And those people usually are a little bit more willing to help. You see a lot of their videos online talking about Magic on a much higher level than I do, clearly. And I am by no means a pro. I am also, I'd like to consider myself to not be a wannabe pro, which is why I'm happy to make this kind of a video, because in my opinion, the wannabe pros are the ones who won't necessarily be willing to help you out. They're a little bit more cocky, they're a little bit more hard-headed and strong-headed about, you know, their abilities and they're amazing and everybody else sucks, and sometimes that happens and it's unfortunate, but that's not everyone. And I just wanted to make that clear if you ever do go to one of your events. The only other thing I wanted to mention, just because I realized that I forgot it again, unscripted show, is just going back to drafting. And I mentioned you open your first pack, take a card and pass it to your left, and receive a pack from your right with one less in it than the person to your right received it at. And you keep doing that until that pack is empty. Now, clearly you have 2 more packs in front of you, right? So you open up the next pack, and that pack you will pick a card out of this just the same way, but this time you pass it to your right. And that matters for strategy. I'll talk about that in either the next video or later videos. That matters for strategy, that you're now passing to the person to your right instead of to your left. And then when you're done with that pack, right, that pack goes around after going to the right. And once you're done with that pack, then you have to open up your third. And your third pack, you open it up and you pick a card out of it and you pass back to your left. So it goes left, right, left with your 3 packs. So that's just something that I had forgotten to mention. So, guys, at this point, I'm going to end the video. As I said, it's been getting a little long. Let me know what you think. This is, as I said many times, unscripted, just me talking to you guys, trying to help you out with drafting. Was it helpful? Have you played Magic before, or have you not? If you haven't, did you learn something? Are you interested in checking out a draft? As I mentioned, do you want to learn how to play Magic? Will you download Magic Duels? Do you want to try to see me do it? I don't have capture software, so I'm gonna have to try to figure that out if that's something you guys want to do. But if I get enough of a response, I'm more than happy to try it out. But let me know in the comments on Facebook, on Twitter. Those links, as I said, are in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. We always welcome feedback. We would love to hear what you guys have to say. Check out the annotations that are above me here to go to the other videos on our channel. Subscribe. Find out when the rest of these videos are coming out if you did like them, because there are a lot more. I have a bunch of ideas written down. As I mentioned, episode 7 is coming out on Wednesday on its regularly scheduled time, although this is not a regularly released show. If I don't have anything for it, I won't put it up, but I have the next couple of ideas down. It just matters whether I'm actually driving to a draft or not. So we'll see how that all works out. And as I always say, guys, in whichever video you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.